Churches and cathedrals. Are they places to worship a deity, or have they another completely different purpose? The amazing architects and builders who designed and erected these stunning feats of engineering and art are sadly not with us anymore, so the real reasons they built these huge edifices will ever remain a mystery. Again, the question is why? Why did they build such large, expensive, and hugely difficult to build structures? Surely, if you found your god or deity, do you really need such an opulent place to worship him, her, it? Firstly, let's look at some of the truly beautiful flaws in some of these places. Doesn't it seem a great shame and nonsensical to cover up these intricate flaws with rows of wooden seats? You would have thought that the architects who spent so much time and effort into designing these flaws would then choose to cover them up with chairs, and sometimes pretty rough ones at that. The pews do not seem to match the level of intricacy and handiwork that the rest of the structure exhibits. To me, they seem like a bit of an afterthought. Now, the choir stalls are something totally different. These, to me, were an integral part of the original design. The craftsmanship is unbelievably stunning. They seem to fit in with the original design, whereas the pews do not. So you build a structure of such magnitude and complexity and then put these in it? Something don't feel right here. So let's just surmise that you want to build a place of worship and make sure that as many people as possible can see the main man giving the sermon. So you design it in this shape. You put two wings on that serve no purpose and make it really difficult for people to see. On top of that, you put pillars all over the place so people can't sit there either. Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. Now, if these buildings were places of healing through cymatics and resonant frequencies, then things start making a little bit more sense. The inside dimensions were obviously hugely important to the architects, otherwise you wouldn't make these places so time-consuming and difficult to build. The practice of bricking up windows, seemingly at the time of inception, also doesn't make any sense, unless you have to fine-tune the structure after it's finished. Let's take a look at the similarity of the rose windows and the patterns produced in the study of cymatics. When you look at what our stars really look like, then this also fits neatly into the equation. There are many intellectual discrepancies related to churches, cathedrals, and also the beautiful mansions of the so-called Gilded Age. The lighting, the organs, the bells, the shape, the window designs, etc., etc.
whoever you share with, whoever you know, the people you're close to.
All of physical matter, everything we have around us, is the result of a frequency. And what that also means is that if you amplify the frequency, the structure of the matter will change.
The daily life we perceive with our five senses is not reality. Quantum physics has shown that space and time are illusions of perception. Therefore, our bodies cannot truly be a reality if they occupy this space. Our true consciousness does not exist in our brains or in our bodies. But this illusion of our individual bodies, along with the misinformation of our true origins, has manifested the idea that we all think independently from one another. With this misunderstanding, it would seem impossible to scientifically explain telepathy, clairvoyance, spiritual mediums, and other phenomena dealing with transferring information between sources without physical means of communication. But when you understand that there is a common spiritual bond between all things in the universe, and that we are all part of one divine intelligence, no phenomena is unexplainable. The blank matter within the most basic building blocks of perceivable existence is malleable and molded by intent. This means that consciousness shapes our reality. This seems difficult to accept for most, and it is quite understandable. In modern times, we are taught from an early age how to think rationally and tangibly. This is a very left-brain method of education, and it has more harmful effects than is given credit for. The left brain deals with logic, details, facts, patterns, practicality, science, and math, as the right brain deals with feeling, intuition, symbols, images, risk-taking, philosophy, and religion. With a deliberate push for government-controlled educational curriculums, generation after generation of the youth are being taught to focus only on the facts, figures, and numbers. Repetition is used to train children subconsciously to accept what they're learning. Children aren't rewarded for questioning the validity of the information they receive. They are ridiculed. However, the children who blindly accept the information as true and merely regurgitate the information on command when it is time to take a test, those children go on to become the decision makers in our government, law, medicine, business, and every other occupation with power and prestige. The most detrimental effect of being pushed away from holistic thinking with the full brain into a strictly left brain thought is what is known as the suppression of the feminine. Every male and female have both feminine and masculine qualities. It has nothing to do with man or woman. These are represented by the left and right brain, yin and yang, black and white, light and dark, and most every other duality. Both are vital to our spiritual and physical health. So the intangible parts of our existence, such as emotions, are part of the true reality of higher consciousness. If emotions are part of a realm that we cannot experience with our five senses, then how is it that we are all aware of our emotions? What most people believe to be emotions are not truly the emotion itself. What we are experiencing is the physical manifestation of these emotions. Anger causes disturbance in the psyche, which manifests itself in the ego. These manifestations cause the heart rate to increase, body temperature to rise, and spawn many other physical traits that signify anger. Just as music from the radio is a physical manifestation of an intangible signal, our experience of emotion is the physical manifestation of an intangible signal as well. It has been shown that our emotions have a vibratory frequency to them. Furthermore, there are only two emotions that humankind experiences: fear and love. All other emotions branch either directly or indirectly from these two emotions. Fear has a long and slow frequency vibration to it, while love has a very rapid and high frequency. To show that vibration is the very foundation of existence, Hans Jenne developed what is known as cymatics in the 1940s to show that when vibrations of sound are passed through a form of media, there is a set pattern that will follow. When the frequency increases, the media develops into a more complex pattern. This is precisely what is happening to our Earth and to humanity. There are 64 possible codes of amino acids in our DNA structure made from 4 elements: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen. By any means of logic, we should have all 64 codes activated within our DNA structure. Yet we presently only have 20 active codes.
And of these 64 possibilities, it appears that only 20 of these codes are turned on right now for us, the 20 amino acids. There is a switch that turns off and turns on where those coding sites lie, and that the switch for that turning off and turning on is what we call emotion. And this is the first time that we've ever seen the patterns of emotion directly physically linked to human genetic material. Well, fear is a long, slow wave of emotion. So this wave of fear is a long, slow wave and touches relatively few sites on this DNA. So an individual living in fear is limited to the number of antennae that they have available to them, whereas an individual living in the pattern of love, this is love in DNA. You can see it's a higher frequency, shorter wavelength. We have many more potential sites for coding along that genetic pattern. This information, this is amazing. This is the first time we've ever had a hard digital link between emotion and genetics.
Show that DNA acts as an antenna for cellular upregulation. The primary function they taught us about what DNA is about. It's a receiver and transmitter of photons, light and phonon sound. For what? Cellular upregulation, meaning that their water molecules, the pyramid power around the DNA spiral energizing strands, are taking in the spiritual energy of love vibrations and then sending it out for manifesting, precipitating in a quantum field, the physical matter of the body. These are hertz, frequencies, or cycles per second that the musicians can retune their instruments to play and experiment with. Why? Again, these are the Creator's musical scale, the original solfeggio, buried for 3,000 years in the Bible. So the ancient priests who knew how to levitate the huge stones for the building of the pyramids, and the Masonic knowledge that predated ancient Egypt, the ability to have this information, these frequencies, serve the function of creation, destruction, and miracles on behalf of the empowered people who had access to this knowledge. This is the difference between the power of our Creator and anything else, particularly evil. That you can go into a pitch black room full of evil, full of darkness, and light a little candle, and instantly that darkness flees. But you can't do the opposite. You can't go into a well-lit room full of truth and wisdom and righteousness and joy and health and harmony with the universal power. And you can't take any amount of darkness and go into that well-lit room and have any effect whatsoever.
Your reality affects you and only you. Your curiosity has led you to this genre of information to serve a very specific purpose in your life.
What makes you think what you know is any different than what other people know?
I had different teachers.